at Bolton NHS Foundation Trust, and I'm going to talk to you today about our journey to electronic approvals, specifically electronic journal approvals, but it kind of laid the foundation for the ability to do any sort of electronic approvals that you can think of. So let me share different thing. As I said at the beginning of this, I've got movers that arrived this morning instead of this afternoon, so I've not prettified this this PowerPoint yet, but here it is anyway. I don't know whether if I just add slideshow, it would start showing you it as a slideshow, or is this showing it as a slideshow or not?
No.
No. Okay. Let's do it. I'll just go through them like this. Shouldn't be too bad. Right. So the basis for this is all around our journal approval process. So at Bolton, the existing process was that all of our journals were approved via email. This consisted of users taking screenshots of their journal templates, adding links to that email, and requiring the approver to say approved or, well, basically, yeah, just approved. And then they would take a screenshot of that and send it, put it into their journal to essentially prove that that journal's been approved. This is kind of the example of one that I've got here. So I've sent Adele an email to say, can you please approve this journal? It's got all of this information on, and they've responded with journal approved, and it's got the date and time at the top. And yeah, that was it. Pretty manual and pretty annoying for everybody, especially when you consider that we can't then track to see who's approved what and when. The journal templates themselves had some good features. So it already had the ability to open up, save as the user that's doing the journal with the date and time, save it in a particular folder for them. It would validate any GL codes that people were using, and that would come straight from our finance system into Excel. It had a copy to clipboard function to essentially post the journal back into the ledger, and once the journal was posted, it then stored the journal template or workings as a read-only file to be looked at later and sent off to auditors and stuff like that. It did have other bad features other than the approval. So formulas and stuff were prone to breaking due to people cutting them, deleting lines. There were multiple journal templates for different scenarios. So at Bolton, we've got multiple companies within it. So the trust and its subsidiary, we've even got the charity. We had different journal templates for doing different amounts of lines, and we had different templates for working from the office or working from home. The macros in the spreadsheet were really good functionally, but if you wanted to make any sort of changes, it would be quite horrific to find the piece of code that actually did the thing that you wanted it to do. Does anybody here share the same experience with regards to journal approval? Does anybody here do manual journal approvals, or do they all use the finance system? Just pop your hand up, maybe put in the chat, like just say whether you do or not. It may be a Bolton specific thing, because quite a few people just use their finance system. I'm gonna say you all use it. That's fine. What I do want from this session is for it to be as not interactive, but like questions and answers kind of things. If there's anything that pops up, put a question in the chat, put your hand up or something, and we'll answer it. yeah, because I want people to understand this process that comes up, as well as like any interests or thoughts that you've got on the process. For anybody that does have a manual one, if you can just briefly explain it, then I can go through it and see whether it's something similar that would be able to work through here. So are we still on the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, cheers. I might be asking that because I'm only got I'm only working on my laptop, so one screen.
No worries.
Between things. So the objective from our senior finance team was this is not working out for us. We need journal approval to essentially be electronic. So no more sending of emails manually, no more screenshots of approvals. We want a proper record of all of the journal approvals to be able to report on who's been approved, who has approved what and when. And in terms of the IT trajectory for the organization, we want to use as many of the more modern tools available to us through the Microsoft 365 suite. So one of the main things is, okay, let's get the finance system to do it. I think that is the answer to many people on the call's journal approval process. Their finance system does it, and true enough, ours does too. The only problem was it didn't actually meet the policies outlined in our journal approval policy. So that policy would be that we approve journals based on a limit given to deputy business partners, and associate directors of finance. And that is at line level. The finance system that we've got is Integra 2. And on that finance system, the approvals are done via total control debits. So if you had a journal that was 1,000 lines of £1,000 each, then that would reach your £1,000,000 limit. Whereas in our policy, that could go to somebody with a much lower limit. The other things about it were to do with rejection of approvals and the journal templating and backup system that we've got. We at Bolton we're very, very heavy on making sure that we've got the right backing for all of our journals. So no just throw in a journal without any backing. Everything needs to be checked and approved and assured that we've got backing for everything that we've done. And as part of doing it in the finance system, there was an opportunity there to essentially say that something's been done, but then if it gets rejected, then we've not got the right status on those journals itself. Another route was to use a SQL Server to do it. It was something that I've done before and was fairly comfortable with the idea of, but access to such a thing was very tricky here, and ended up being something that I couldn't actually go down that route of. There would also be no local support to diagnose those issues because of the barriers to learning and accessing SQL Server through SSMS. The third idea, and the idea that I went through with this whole thing, was to use the approvals app within the Power suite of things. So you'll find it on Teams, you'll find it on Power Automate, and build a system around that. One of the main things that this idea came from was the concept demonstrated by Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust around their electronic business case approval. I don't know whether anybody on the call is aware of that, but it essentially uses Power Apps, Power Automate, the Approvals app, and SharePoint to send out approvals. And this is kind of piggybacking off that innovation that's on the innovation forum, which is linked to in these slides here, and I'll send these slides out after this. So I'd seen that it worked. It ticked all the boxes in terms of it being a new and modern way of doing things. I guess the main problems that I had is I've never used this before. I'd barely made a single Power Automate flow. I'd never used SharePoint before. I'd never used Power Apps before, and certainly never used the Approvals app before. So without that proof of concept demonstrated, the confidence to go into this would be very low, and I probably wouldn't have gone down this route without it. And I just want to, just really express my thanks for anybody who was on the call that is from Norfolk and Suffolk for demonstrating that, because it did really help me, and I'm hoping that this also helps others to see the process again, if you will, in a more maybe more well-used thing within finance, more accessible thing. So journals that everybody does within or most people do within the finance department, and all of the issues and solutions that have come across during this to try and push the boundaries of all of those systems that I've just mentioned. Any questions so far? Charlotte, the finance system that we've got at Bolton is Integra 2. Okay. So in terms of this solution and the process that takes place, what we have is a Power App to start things off. This essentially just kickstarts the creation of a journal template for somebody and saves it in a document library in something called a document set. Any questions so far? Maybe what is a document library? What is a document set? Does anybody want to know? Yeah, so I can see some yeses in the chat. So a document library on SharePoint is essentially a bit like a folder, or a folder that you'd find on your drives, on your local drives at work. So maybe like an S drive, an L drive, a K drive, but it is all online, and it essentially allows you to store information about, well, just to store files, basically, just the same way in which you would store files on in your documents. And I will change the way this is sharing. Share my screen instead. So here we've got the journals document library. So in here I've got all of the document sets that are within this document library, which essentially stores all of our journals. And what you can see over here is the journal reference for when the journal's been posted, the name of the journal template, the journal title, and there are many other things over to the right to say that are metadata for what that actual file is for. So when you search or see things on in your file system, you essentially see the type of the file, whether it's a spreadsheet or a Word document or something, and the name of the file. Generally, they're the only two things that you end up seeing. On SharePoint, what we can do is we can bring in loads more additional features to say what this journal actually is for. So you can see here, I've got tons more information for me to identify what period the journal is for, search on all the journal types that somebody's done, search for the company that somebody's posted to, the year, who modified it, who created, and the status, along with the integral reference at the start. A document set is kind of like a mini folder, but everything within that document set is given the same metadata. So on this particular journal template here, it's got all of this metadata associated with it. But if I was to upload a file, let's see. So I've uploaded that file there. So say this could be like backing information for that particular journal. What that does is it tags that backing with all of the same information that the journal template had, and I can't edit it either. So all of the metadata associated with this journal template then kind of like echoes across all of the files within this mini folder, within this document set. And that's why it's been created in this way, so that if you do add in additional files and backing within the document set, you can then search for it in the library. That file is actually tagged with all of that additional information to say that it's there for that particular purpose. Any questions on that? Jennifer?
Yeah, so I know this one that you've done is mainly for finance staff, so I guess they'll all have access to it. But then if I needed to do something that was more trust-wide and I needed operational teams to do something on it, how would that happen?
So the file path for this was Finance Directorate, and that was just like a Teams team. I don't know the proper name for it, but a Teams team for it that has been created. So like on the One NHS Finance teams, a team would have been like the software skills team. And
Yes.
by creating a software skills team, it creates a site for software skills.
Okay.
And then within that, you can then create a new document library. So what you would essentially have is you would need a Teams team.
So like
There are other ways to do it, but a Teams team that you can then add people to, that you would be the owner of.
Yeah.
In order to add, remove people from that. and also an owner of, so that you can do all the setup as well. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Charlotte?
Hiya. Apologies in advance if I ask quite a few questions around this, because I find it really interesting. My first question is, how is the metadata linked to the journal in the first place? Does it work like in SQL, you do like an inner join to other tables?
Essentially, yes, but the SharePoint way. So on SharePoint, you can create a column called a lookup column. And that essentially allows you to look up a particular, like to join to a SharePoint list, and then bring in columns from that SharePoint list. So all of the columns which you saw there, or most of them anyway, are all based on one lookup to a journal's SharePoint list. And that journal SharePoint list is updated with all the metadata through Power Automate, and I'll go on to show how that happens later on.
Okay, so that's not something that's maintained manually. That's something it's an automated and updated connection.
Yeah, it just takes information from the file. So somebody's entering that information on the journal template, and then it is taking the information from that journal template and putting it on to the journal's SharePoint list, and therefore showing it to people. So there's no typing in that this is a MA01 journal, no typing in to say that this is for trust or what period it is. They've already typed that in on the journal template themselves.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure whether you've already mentioned this at the start. Did you have training in order to be able to do this and roll this out, or is this sort of self-learned?
This is all ridiculously self-learned.
Okay, that's fantastic.
As
that gives me hope anyway.
So I knew absolutely nothing about SharePoint, Power Apps, and I'd only done some teeny tiny Power Automate things just to send myself an email or something like that. Nothing on the scale of this. So yeah, it was all completely new, which is kind of like the reason why I didn't want to go down the SQL Server route, because I did want to do something new. I did like this. This was a massive opportunity for me to get over my get out of my comfort zone with regards to these technologies, because I don't think that without this I would never ever come across anything that I'd need to know about these technologies in this much detail.
Okay, thank you, that's really helpful, and it gives me hope anyway.
Good. Right, I'll go back to the PowerPoint then. So just as just as I was mentioning there, so let's recap. So I've got a Power App, which I'll show you in a bit, which runs Power Automate in the background to create a document set within that document library that you just saw. That same flow creates a record in a journal SharePoint list and automatically opens up the journal template for people to start using. The journal template, when it opens for the first time, it downloads refreshes all of the data live from the finance system. So we've got ODBC connections direct to our finance system currently to be able to do that, which is really powerful. The users then fill in the journal template as they normally would. There's far more helpers and validations in there now to make sure that people do their journals correctly. And there's also checks to see whether you're sending the journal on to somebody who's actually got the right approval limits. And provided there are no errors on that journal, the journal can be requested for approval, and this then triggers the approval process. Any questions on those elements so far? Jennifer?
So in terms of other apps that integrate with this, so like the journal templates, I assume that's on Excel. So if I wanted to do something with like Microsoft Forms, you know, if somebody submits a form, have you worked with anything like that, and how do they work together?
To do approvals of things that are on forms.
Yeah.
So I don't know in terms of the store of that data. So I don't know whether SharePoint document, the file, I imagine, is saved.
Well, yes, we've
on
got
SharePoint.
some of, yeah, we've used like Microsoft Forms for like surveys and things like that before, and they are on SharePoint. Definitely, but I'm just thinking if I wanted to use it for things like business case approvals and things like that, how they would work
I'll
together.
show you in a bit.
Okay, so
Yeah, because it's essentially you skip out the trigger that you skip out the journals trigger for the ones which I'm going to show you, and you replace it with the form. So you create a new line on a form, or somebody submits a form, and then it triggers the rest of the process. So I'll show you that.
Thank you.
I was going to show you the different bits afterwards, but it may be a bit too far away for you to remember what on earth we've just gone through. So open up Power Apps whilst I'm waiting, and just go to the next screen. Right. So we've got to the point in which somebody's sent a journal off for approval. Once they do that, no, actually, yeah, I will show the whole process. So let me just share my screen the other way. So what people have on their journals is, well, their document library is a list of all the journals, and then a link at the top which just says journaltemplate.url. If I click on that link, it opens up the Power Apps for Journal Template. It then starts to run. You can see it here at the top. It's now running Power Automate. As soon as you open this, it's running Power Automate. So there's no clicking of buttons or anything like that. And as soon as that's done, it then allows you to open up the file. It redirects the Power Apps to the SharePoint document library, which is now document set, which has now been created in my name. And it starts the process of opening up the journal template and allowing somebody to start typing into it. This is what the journal template looks like. And in here, we can put in what organization we are using, so say it's a trust, or if I want to use IFM, change it to IFM. If I want to do a permanent journal, which is of journal type FA01, it then tells me that this is just for posting actuals. If I wanted to do an MA01 journal type, then I can post to actuals, whole times worked and whole times contracted, just the way in which we've set up some journal types within our finance system. I can say that I'm creating this journal and I want to send it off to Carl Jones and say, please do not approve. That would be embarrassing. Don't know how to spell the word embarrassing, so I won't write it. And say that in there. I can then start to put in all of my journal reference details. So something in there, something in there. Say it's a MA1. So let's just do that, that. And yeah, that's fine. And then put £1,000 there, minus £1,000 there. And what's wrong with this journal? Wrong org. Yeah, because I'm doing a trust one. Okay, so that means that some of the information that we saw there was that it said that I was posting to the wrong GL code associated with the wrong company, so change the company back to trust. And now I'm essentially ready to do this journal. I would put my backing in here, and I can now send this off for approval. So I would click on here. And what this does now is it checks SharePoint to see whether any approvals have already happened for this journal. It also checks to make sure that the GL period hasn't changed. So imagine a time in which you've gone back to a journal which you created last month and you just wanted to finish it off because you didn't actually get time to do it for the previous month, then you may have still got old GL information in here. So that process there just make sure that it clears out the journal period if it's changed, and then changes the GL period to make it sure it's the correct one. So I'm going to send this off for approval. I've always had this, do you want to do it in the old manual route? And we've had this running for a year and 2 months now, and thankfully nobody has ever gone for going down the manual route. It's always been a yes, and every single journal that we've done since the 23rd of November 2023 has been done in this way. So I press OK. I can then save this, and now that has essentially gone to Carl for approval. Let me see if I can. Because I'm using Teams via the web, it's taken me away from my Bolton Teams account. But I'll show you some workflow messages on there in a bit. But that's essentially the process that I've gone through so far with regards to those that diagram. So on here, yeah, all of this bit. That's what we've done so far. Any questions on what you've seen? Charlotte?
Yeah, could I just check, you know, when sort of there are lookups to whether the GL code exists, what company it's linked to, and things like that. Is that all live data from the ODBC connection? So that's yeah. Okay, thank you. Just checking so it's live. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Anyone else? Okay. So moving on to the next part then, which is the approvals process. So I've just saved that journal, and what has happened now is that Power Automate will update the journal SharePoint list with the metadata from my journal template. I will see whether actually, if I stop sharing, I can go and actually find it and show you it happening live. So you can see there, it's taken all the things which I've just typed in. So here's one from Michael below where he's not actually typed in the stuff yet. So it's kind of like he's just created the journal and he hasn't pressed save yet. Whereas here, I've created the journal, done what I need to, and press save. So all of the information about that journal header wise and various things to do with the highest value line are on there, the number of rows, and a link back to the journal itself is all saved within the journal SharePoint list. There are some things with regards to the original GL period that if somebody opened a file with, and the last GL period that it's tried to post to. There are also these hashes here for every thing within the journal. So if somebody makes a change to the journal after it's been approved, then somebody can't copy and somebody can't post it to the finance system because these hashes will have changed. And that essentially says that you've changed something about the headers, changed something about the GL code, or you've changed anything about the amounts, even if you just moved it from one row to the next or changed a letter from A to B, that will kind of invalidate the approval, and you would need to send it off again. Kind of just makes sure that the approvals that we are doing are genuinely, as whatever gets approved by the person within the finance team is actually what gets posted. What else is on here? There's a lookup here to the approvals list. So I'll go to the approvals SharePoint list. You can see there, this approval has been sent on to Carl. It's currently pending. This is some of the information which he's got sent to him. So he's been told that there's a trust journal and the top of it says, please do not approve. So the journal title is please do not approve, that needs approving. And it's got information about the effect on the bottom line, the effect on capital, and the effect on balance sheet. It also tells them the highest value line and the control total, and a link back to the file itself so that they can check the backing, because that's one of the main jobs of the approver, is to check that the backing's correct, along with the values and stuff. It stores all of the hashes that we showed you earlier, so that if there is any change between these ones that are saved on this particular approval, then that's what it's checking against, and will make sure that this approval goes through, as long as all of those are the same. I think that's it for that. Let me go back here. What somebody would see on there, see if I can see it. There's that one. That's the old kind of way of doing things. Yeah, I've not got anything in there to prove otherwise. So what Carl would then get right now is a message on Teams, which has a card saying all of that information, which is within this column here. And that would allow him to approve, query, or reject that particular journal. And he will also get an email as well for it. In fact, no, I think I turned off all the emails. Nobody liked it twice, so we only do it via Teams now. So they just get a card within Teams to approve, reject, or query, and then the result of that goes off to the requester. So I don't know whether Carl's actually going to respond to this, given that I've said please do not approve, but we shall see later on. Any questions so far? Okay. So I've shown you the approval SharePoint list, which is updated with all of the approval information. The approver is notified and the response is shared back on that approval SharePoint list. Once the approval actually does come through, the requester will get the response to say what it was. I can actually show you some response that some people would get. So via email, people are still getting emails to say that something's been approved. So here to Leah, Karen has approved this particular journal, and that has now is now ready for them to post to Ledger. One thing you may notice is why on earth am I sending the emails across? And it's one of the key things which I'd probably say, which I was always made aware of via the electronic business case approval process, is to get yourself a sysadmin kind of like central service account to do everything from. I couldn't get that here, so I've just done it all based on my own account, and I've done everything that you see. So everything that you see is all done via Power Automate 3. The only caveat to that is that we're using it so much that we actually exceeded the limits of what Power Automate 3 allows you to do in a day. So I had to upgrade to Power Automate Premium just to so that we can go over those limits of how many requests and stuff that you can make a day. It's about 10,000 like things within Power Automate that you can do a day. I think they're called requests. So we'll at month end, like for outside of month end, it's totally fine. But on some crunch days during month end, we would quite easily go over 10,000 requests, and that would on Power Automate 3 throttle the system, and therefore all of your flows would either come to a crumbling halt or just run so slowly over hours rather than taking the minute that it should. So we had to go down the route of Power Automate Premium to get over that hurdle. But functionality wise, I don't use anything that isn't available in Power Automate 3. It was just the performance that I got from Power Automate Premium. That makes sense. Once a journal is approved, they can copy to clipboard. If I go back to here, if this was approved, I can click this button. It will then check everything is all approved and correct and ready to go. And within our finance system, there are ways in which you can kind of drill through to a particular screen, and that will send you over to the journal screen and allow you to essentially paste in all the journal lines, because it'll have copied all of the journal lines to your clipboard. You can paste it in, press OK, and then you can get your journal reference from that. Once the journal is posted, you put the journal reference in the template, and that completes the process. That then updates SharePoint list to say that it's been posted, and you've then essentially got this document library full of journals that have been posted or otherwise, which you can search, and yeah, everybody can see everything. Everybody can search for everything, and that's that really with regards to the process. I'll show you more with regards to Power Automate in a bit. So I've said here before we see it, but I feel like when I was going through those just then, it was actually better for you to see it whilst we went through it. So yeah, is there any questions at all so far with regards to what you've seen, what I've said, any ideas, any thoughts? Jennifer, did I answer your question with regards to the limits? Charlotte?
Me again, sorry. Just to clarify, so that process is the approval only. So once it's approved, does the member of staff then go in and process the journal in
Yeah.
Integra?
Yeah.
They would then use the module to raise the
Yeah,
journal.
for those
Okay.
that use the Oracle systems, it's kind of like what gives, like our system does this for us, and it's like, yeah, what's the point of this to me? Totally get it. It's just not what R1 did. Oh no, R1 does do that, and people in the chat have alluded to that. It's just not the route in which we went down. And that's that really.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a different way of doing things. Essentially doing it in the system is the way in which we're going to do in the future. But for the last year, this is what we've been doing.
Okay. I'm wondering whether what you would think on this, but we currently have a manual authorised signatory process. So getting new signatories added, changing limits, it's all done through emails and Word documents, and adding electronic signatures. So I'm wondering whether sort of a process like this would be achievable. I wonder what your thoughts are. Maybe what does your organisation do with regards to authorised signatories?
So this was exactly the second thing that I was going to do with this. The foundations of what I've built here is to sort out the authorized signature list.
Okay.
The thing which stopped me from doing that is because we're on a big project to change finance systems, and that in turn meant that that process was going to change anyway, and therefore it wasn't worth my time developing and investing in doing that process. But it's very manual, like just as yours is. Ours is very manual too, and that was the goal, to go next, because the approval process here and the approval SharePoint list, although yes, I did embed it with some journal specific things, there's no reason why the whole foundation there can't be used for other things. That's what it's designed to do. So I was going to use it for the authorized signatory lists and waivers within the organization.
Okay.
the same thing obviously can be done with business cases as proved previously. And yeah, there's just so many different things in which you could go down this route. And the thing that Jennifer mentioned earlier on, that if you've got things going through Microsoft Forms, say, then you would be able to trigger and store this process. One major thing about that I wanted to cover off from the electronic business case approvals was the limitations around the days in which something could be left waiting approval for, and also just keeping a record of all the approval processes, keeping all of those IDs stored somewhere to then further use within Power Automate to kind of restart the process. Just so happened to be that you can't wait a month for journals to be approved. You generally only have like a week or so at most before the period is closed. So yeah, it's not something that we've ever had to explore, but yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. And I think I'll try to make this my last question for now. How long did this take you from start to finish, from thinking, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn the different sort of, Power Automate, Power Apps, to getting it rolled out? And was it just yourself, or did you have a team?
So it was just myself. I started just on the journal template because Excel's like, I was starting on the things which I was comfortable with. I just wanted to create a journal template that does loads of different validation and stuff. So just deal with the finance system and stuff, things which I was comfortable with. And I started that process mid to end of August 2023. And I was working mainly on the journal template side of things for about a month. And once I was comfortable with this is what I want to present to people, I then started to go into, okay, how am I gonna bring in these other technologies? What is the first thing that somebody needs to do? They need to create a journal. How do I get somebody to be able to create a journal? I need them to click on a button, perhaps. Can I get them to click on a link? If I get them to click on a link or click on a spreadsheet that already exists, that's not going to create something new. And I was working with Share. I wanted to work with SharePoint, and I was like, okay, well, everything's opening up online. I have not got any macros online. Bolton don't currently have the Office. Somebody help me. Paul, help me. What's the Office macros called? The online ones. There's something. Anyway, the macros have been, yeah. The macros are online. Like I didn't have that access to me, and yeah, just load all of that. Trying to understand what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? That kind of just came from there. And from August to the 23rd of November, which is it's ingrained in my head. It's like at 5 p.m. on the 23rd of November, we moved from the old process to the new process. And all the journals that have been processed from then have all been done in this way. But yeah, it was just work between that period to try and figure things out. I'd say that during the period from the 23rd of November to probably from the 23rd of November, well, from a week later, I was off sick for 5 weeks. So the process seemed to work. Nobody seemed to have too many issues with the journal template, but it was a terrible time to be off when you've just rolled out a new system. But thankfully, my assistant Matthew Lamb was able to train people and support people during that time to make sure that they can do the journals, and also thankfully nobody reverted back, because it could be very easy for somebody for people to say, oh, this is a big change, there's nobody here to help me, I'm just going to do it the old way. Nobody did do that, and which I'm very grateful for, because we get the massive benefits from it and people learning the new process. End of January, we realized that the performance issues were occurring, and by March we'd secured the Power Automate Premium license for me, and since then, so I know that the Power Apps actually said that the last update was the 2nd of January, but that was just to update some journal approvers. Since then, I've not updated the template or the process really since April last year. So there was development work ongoing. So like, it was calculating like the highest value incorrectly, or it was calculating, we added things to say that you want to see the capital effect and the balance sheet effect and the profit and loss effect. We changed some things with regards to the way in which the journal template was saved. It was previously a macro enabled workbook, but we changed it to a XLSB file because those opened up faster and saved faster and just worked better for people. Yeah, that's the time period. So from nothing to go live, is that 3.5 months, and then about 3 months of just troubleshooting, and then it's been fine since. Fine, provided like there's no IT issues in terms of people not being able to save things. It's an entirely online process. This, not a single part of it actually touches local drives, which is nice in the case of today, because potentially we would have all been locked out of our drives today. But everything that I'm showing you so far is all online.
Thank you.
Anything from anybody else? I'm going to go through I'm going to go through each thing step by step now. But do you want to take like a 5-minute break? And we'll come back at 7 past 11. Just to, yeah, I can de-panic from the move. All right, I'll see you at 7 minutes past 11. Hello. Right. Welcome back. I've put in chat, and hopefully you've seen this video whirl around quite a few times now. If there is anything on it that you see that you fancy the look of, please do note it down and make sure that I do cover it. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is essentially go through the oh, and whilst I'm talking or going through something, I will keep on popping back to the chat to see or to see whether any hands are up or anything like that. But if you do have any questions whilst I'm going through anything, please do put your hand up and please do ask in the chat. Right. So the first stage of this whole process starts with this link to a journal template URL. That URL is, well, I can't actually edit. I can't actually see it in here. I've never been able to figure out how to actually see the link which I've actually chosen. But it is a link to this Power App, and I've got it here in edit mode. And all this is a page with a background for Bolton on, with some information in there to say welcome to the page. But what the very specific parts of this that make it do what it's supposed to do is around it. Where are we? Up. There we go. So let's go down here. There we go. So here I've got a load of code here to run when this app starts. So the first thing that it does is calls a variable, which is the app version. And that app version, I've just called it version 2.0.0. I've called the app name Journal Template Live. And I've gone and grabbed and put into this parameter here the app version from list. I've gone and grabbed the latest version of this app on a completely different app version control list. So in here, I've got a SharePoint list, just as like the others that you've seen, and on here, I essentially can control whether somebody has got access to that app or not by essentially taking it offline for maintenance. So if I do this and I say under maintenance, I can go into the maintenance window and say testing will be back online at 11:15. And I can press save on that. What that does when somebody goes to this journal template now is rather than it actually do the things that somebody normally does, and it's like get somebody a journal template, it actually sends somebody to this screen. The important thing about that, and it refreshes every 15 seconds, I think. The important thing about that is that this then gives me time to update the journal template that it's using. So that nobody uses a journal template that is kind of out of date, or nobody uses the app whilst I'm developing it. So if I've saved something and I'm previewing it, I'm just testing some stuff out. Nobody's using those broken bits whilst I'm doing that testing. So it assures that this is not being used in a broken state. Let's go back to this. So this whole thing here is just kind of like filtering the app version control SharePoint list, and it's saying where the app name is equal to the journal template live. And then it's sorting by created date descending. It's then going to get me the app version column. So the app version column is this column here. So it's now found that the app version is under maintenance, and it's then returned that to this Power App. And this is essentially this code here. That's a VLOOKUP in Power Apps to SharePoint list. That's just a way in which you could see it. And the next things on here is I'm setting a URL to launch from here this app, such that if somebody goes on this Power App and doesn't have the word prod in the URL, then so if prod doesn't equal y on the end of this URL, then they would never be able to get to this screen at all. So only those people with this link can actually run this Power App itself. So rather than just stumbling across it maybe in a list of all Power Apps that exist, if you just followed that through, this wouldn't actually run anything for, say, IT snooping around stuff. There's loads of stuff on here which I've commented out because I didn't need to use it. And then the final thing is it is saying that I want to take the user's email that's actually clicked on it, and I want to also what we're doing here. So run the email. Right, so on here, I'm then running the Power App. So I'm running the Power Automate process and I'm passing the Power Automate process my email address. And then once that process is done, I can then send the user to the document library that it's going to give me the information for at the end. Any questions on that? A useful resource online to help you learn. Okay. Yes, exactly. So the process which I've just outlined then is literally like taking somebody's blog post and making it happen. So I've got the links to all of the help which I've gained during this. I've got links at the end of my PowerPoint to show you, to share with you. But this website here, I followed all of the guidance in here. So this was all about, this is the problem like that I was having, like people could potentially be running Power Apps based on a cached version. I don't know whether anybody's seen Power Apps be used and then also Power Apps being changed, but sometimes it'll say, oh, this app has changed, do you want to refresh? I never wanted somebody to accidentally be on an old cached version whilst there was a new version out there. So what this process does is it version controls the whole thing, and the very first thing that it tests before it runs anything is the version of this matching the version in my app version control list. So following all of this, like the on start stuff, even use the same parameters that they've got in here. It's fantastic. I was really happy to find this and use it in this work. So the link to that is on the PowerPoint. Anything else with regards to the Power App? There is another screen to it, so you did see that there was a maintenance thing. Yeah, Paul, like it seemed like it was absolutely necessary to make sure that there's nothing that's going to, because one of the things that I needed from this process is to not be tied to it as well, as much as possibly can, because I don't want to create an industry for myself to do this stuff. I want automation to be automation, and then as soon as it's done, I can leave it alone. And essentially that's what I've generally been able to do. Like the only things that have come up is people pressing save and it not saving because of IT issues and things like that. There's generally like 90% of it's always been to do with network problems, and I can't do too much about it, but it does have its impact with regards to making sure that things go through. And we tried our best to inform people where the problems have occurred, and they get messages to say that a journal has failed, so therefore to retry now, which hopefully has, yeah, it's definitely I've not received many things at all since setting that up, because they've made aware of it, when the problems arise and they know what to do next is to just retry. Screen has gone weird. My background, so I'm a systems accountant, and within that, within the scope of that, I've been privileged enough to work with various finance systems and their reporting tools. The one of the main things that I learned that could be a really powerful thing to do within finance is to use SQL. And as soon as I can, I will often try to find ways to get the information that I want via SQL. So I am very competent within SQL, and I was a SQL Server database owner in my previous job. Therefore, that controlling all of the security, all of the stored procedures, making sure that reports ran correctly for people. So writing all that stuff, and our current reporting system within Integra is all SQL based. You've got access to all the data that you ever would want. So unlike the other Oracle systems that many of you do have, I can write a report on anything within the finance system and get it out to people like straight away. So although we're talking about a process which is like, oh, my finance system does this, yes, but the finance system that I am using has other benefits in powerful ways. So yeah, I do have prior experience in SQL. How much time has been saved with this new process? It's difficult to say, I guess, because it's not saved me any time. I wasn't approving journals before, so it's taken me a long time to do it. But for other people, especially the approvers, they are very grateful for the user experience that they've got here, the visibility that they now have over their approvals and what they've got on their to-do list, so they're not missing emails and whatnot. They can see, they can look at approvals lists to see what's pending for them. So I guess the time is saved with that visibility and the efficiencies, rather than having to look for something, reply to stuff in a manual way, rather than like clicking a button, send stuff off rather than clicking a button. And the improvements in the journal template itself allows people to do things with far less errors when doing their journals. So you do less journals as a result. So I don't know is the answer, but there's a general feeling there that you've got a lot of things that you've made efficiencies for. So generally, people have been great with using the process. As I said, like as soon as I rolled it out, I was off for 5 weeks. I was very, very grateful, and we do have people that could have easily been really averse to the change, but also very thankfully our senior management team are extremely change like friendly, and had made a very big impact on what's the phrase, sponsoring the change, so that the rest of the teams knew that they had to had to get on with it, and be receptive to it. There has most certainly been issues that have occurred and resistance during the last year, though, for sure. There was a point in time in which it felt like everybody had pulled together and kind of said, this is terrible, it needs to change. But the things which were terrible were the IT issues that I had so little like ability to affect, and so little ability to like trace and understand, that it was extremely difficult in that moment to really assure people. Like people, like when people were working on it and like Excel crashes, like I personally have never had it crash. I do journals, I do send journals off for approval. I haven't had it crash, but I'm on Excel 365. The rest of the finance department are on Office 2016. So that was a big hurdle during the journal template creation process anyway. I'll show you the macros and stuff, and like it has to, everything that I've done and developed has to be compatible with Office 2016, and it also has to combat the changes for when people do go on to Excel 365. So yeah, there's a lot, there has been a lot of acceptance and a lot of resistance, but for all the times in which things have been like raised to say that they are issues. For instance, from March, I think last year, we rolled out a Power Automate process to kind of check in with people based on our month-end timetable, and we put on there the journal template. Has the journal template caused them to not be able to do their job properly? And over the entire year, I think it only got ticked once, if at all. I think it was if at all, because I think it was just mentioned in a meeting rather than have somebody having to actually press it. So there's that. It's been a massive learning curve for me and for everybody, but we needed to allow people this opportunity to work on something that they are fairly comfortable with, which is journals, but in a new place. And now that they're in that new place and working in this way, I think they're far more comfortable with the technology that they've got access to. Bolton are changing finance system through somewhat necessity and somewhat opportunity. So we believed that our finance system was reaching its end of life, and therefore needed to come up with a plan to move on to the next one. So the finance system we're going to is Integra Centros. So it's just like the upgraded version. It's like all the people that are on SBS going from Oracle R12 to Oracle Cloud. Yeah, it's kind of like the next big thing for that same-ish finance system. So we had a deadline to hit for that. We've also got also had the opportunity to collaborate with Manchester University NHS Foundation Trust to actually come up with a shared finance system to work on with this, and that has been a really massive part of the last year for me, and being able to get to a point where we've developed and are rolling out and testing a system that we've created specifically for us off the back of Integra Centros. So Centros allows us to do loads of Centros already does things for us that are really, really good, but it also has lots of tools and opportunities within it to develop things which are very NHS specific. So that's what's happening with us. Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, well, if you get in touch, Charlotte, we'll just find out where you're at and see whether we're able to help in any particular way to help your decision making. Right. So the Power App is the only thing I've shown you so far. We've still got a few things to go. So let's crack on. Where are we? Not that screen, that one. So yeah, we did have another screen on here, which was just the out of service one, and all that does is it grabs it does another lookup to the list to say this particular message, and then append to it the maintenance window column, the latest maintenance window column from the app version control list, which is what you saw earlier, which reminds me, not actually said that the testing is back online at 11:15. So let's not annoy people and put that back online. Apologies to everyone at Bolton for that. And I can either add a new line on this, or I could just delete it. I'm just going to delete it. Yeah, that will now. So you'll see on here, this will refresh within the next few seconds. And once it refreshes, it will be back online. And I'm waiting for, yeah, it's going to start and create a journal template for me now. So the journal template, the process that it's running right there is on Power Automate. So I'll cancel that because I don't need to open that file that's just been created. Let's just do that so it's out the way for this. So on here, we've got a Power Automate flow. And in Power Automate, what you do is essentially you create actions, and each of those actions can do a variety of things. I mean, you can see the approvals app is there at the top. We can say that you want to get something from an email. We can say that we want to get something from Microsoft Forms. So get response details, for instance. We can see some more stuff from Forms. It's probably just the one. Yeah, so as soon as somebody's submitted something, then that triggers this to start. So the, well, in fact, probably would have been something there. So if I deleted that, then you'd see it. But what I showed you on the Power Apps was it sends the user email to this. So this takes the user email, calls it user email in the parameters, and uses that for the next step. So I want to get all of the profile information about that user via that email address. I'm then going to timestamp the whole thing, create the file name for them with their username, with their full name on it. I'm then also going to take the, I'll show you this in a sec, and I'll show you the reason why for it. I'm going to create the file on the journals document library, and I'm going to create some more variables down here, and I'm going to update some of the metadata to do with it, well, some of the columns to do with it. So adding in the journal library links, and then I'm going to do some weird things to do with HTTP requests, create the document sets, update the metadata, and then do some more HTTP requests. So in this, where I've got the create an item, what anybody that's used Power Automate may have seen before is that when you create an item it'll create the item as the user of Power Automate, like whoever's the owner of it, or whoever's like logged in, actually, more specifically in terms of the login information for it on here. I don't even know where it is, but it's somewhere. So in this particular case, it's going to create this item on the journals list as me. Now, I don't want it to do that. I want it to create it as if it was the person that's clicked on the journal template Power App. So what you can do in Power Automate is you can actually edit who's modified by and who's created by, which kind of like sounds crazy, and it somewhat is, but it's possible. And let's not have anybody from Microsoft watch this and say, hey, actually we should stop this. But what I can do here is I can update the modified by column and the created by column to be the actual user that's ran this process rather than me. The same thing when I create the document set. I'm going to update the file, the document set, and then I'm also going to update the journal template that's created to make sure it shows that the requester was the person to do it. And I'm going to pass all that, the file name that's been created and the path to the file back to the Power Apps so that it can go on here. Scroll back up. Where are we? Start screen. It can go to the journal screen, the document library. That's not on start. There. So the bottom of this, it launches. Nope, still the wrong thing. It goes to the finance directorate with the file path attached to it. It then also uses this link at the end of it to always open up the file in Excel desktop. So that allows us to make sure that people opening it up in desktop. I've set the settings on SharePoint to make sure that files do automatically open up on desktop, so that people can then start to use the macros involved in it. The journal template itself is a content type of its own within SharePoint. So I've created a journals content type, which is in itself a document set. And when somebody creates a new file, a new item within the journals document library, it creates this it as a journal. And what that means is that when somebody does create a new journal, every journal always starts with every document set always starts with a journal template, and the name of the document set is added to each file name. So it will be the document set name and then journal template.xlsb. So every journal template is unique rather than them all saying journal template and then you can't open two at once. When I want to update the journal template, I would come in here. Well, I would go to the app version control, say it's under maintenance, come in here and then delete that one, upload the new one, tick this box, press add, and then save. And then that allows the new journal template to be live on the system, ready for somebody to use via all this process so far. Any questions on that? Okay. Moving on to further things then. So for the process that we discussed earlier, so we've got to the point in which somebody's actually doing the journal template. So I've got the journal template here, and within this, there are various different things which are running when the user is it opens it. So and apologies for this, but I'm just going to go through it. It's going to be there, like you can see it, and then it may not mean anything to you. It may mean something to you. I'm not going to discuss how to use macros and how to code. I'm just going to show you what this is doing. So when you open up the workbook, it essentially takes all of the Power Query stuff that I've got in it, and it makes sure that they all automatically press the run query on it. So you may have opened up spreadsheets before with Power Queries on, and then whenever somebody's made a change or anything like that, you have to wait for it to ask you to press run. By putting in this code here, that doesn't happen other than the very first time somebody's ever used this template at all. So once it's done that, it like kind of saves it locally to say that I always want to run this, run the queries fast. So I don't want to say to reject any queries or whatnot. This section here essentially says if you're using Excel 365, then turn autosave off. The reason for that is that macros, I need macros to work on somebody pressing save in this. So if autosave was on, then the macros would always be working and it would just never work. Then take the username of the person that's doing this journal. I take their computer name just for the sake of it. Don't actually need that bit, but I do need the username bit. I then get the content types, or I've wrote a macro called get content types in here, which if I go to here, it essentially looks at the journals. Well, it gets the property from this file, which is called journal, and that is the ID of this journal as created via Power Automate. So in Power Automate, wherever we were, update file properties. Yeah, so I created an ID for this earlier on, and I'm now updating the journal ID column for this in the spreadsheet itself. And when you open up spreadsheets that have metadata associated with it, you can go into info and click on show all properties, show details, and this will show you that the journal ID for this one is 5579. It's like embedded within the file itself. So it gets that journal ID, puts it into the spreadsheet, and then it uses that for other processes later on. That's all the stuff to do with creating the hashes on the amounts, encoding it to create the encryption for it, and that's all fine. Let's see, workbook sheet change, that's fine. So when somebody's started to run things, it does refresh data, and when it refreshes the data, it will check to see whether somebody's actually got the ODBC drivers installed. If they've not, then this still allows them to work on the template. They'll just have old information in it, and they will need somebody else to process the journal for you if you wanted them, if you need the data refreshing. They wouldn't be able to post a journal without ODBC installed because it can't possibly check the GL period. So that avoids that kind of opportunity for somebody to do that. So this kind of macro here checks the GL period. So by accessing the Power Queries, refreshing those, getting the latest GL period from the system, and things here with regards to looking at the journals list and the approvals journals. All of the queries aspect of things is all being done by Power Automate, Power Query. So this is just refreshing Power Query queries. Right, so if I were to refresh data, I've got in here lots of these queries, which are direct connections to the system. So this gets me all of the journal voucher types from the system. This one gets me all of the data sets within the system. So 01 is actuals, 05 is worked whole times, 10 is contracted whole time. Just tells me where things are going to be posted to and gives me information as to whether those data sets can be balanced or not. I think Gets me all the GL code information and gets me all the journal lines, all the GL periods, and so on and so forth. Tells me how many prior periods we're allowed to post to. Tells me how many forward periods we're allowed to post to. So if I make a change within the finance system to increase the prior periods to say up to month 1 of this year, then I don't need to go and edit a journal template. They just need to refresh the data and it will get that information from the finance system. Similarly, if we want to post into future periods, I'd just change it in the finance system. They'd press refresh here and it'll pull it through. And then this tells you what all the available periods are for particularly journals. So all of that stuff is there within Power Query. Where are we? Questions so far? Okay. There are various things within here that are being used to help users out. I just want to, and most of them are all just formulas just to try and check to see whether something's valid or not. And it's all business rules that are very specific to Bolton, I guess. One thing that I just wanted to show the idea of is the validation errors here. So rather than having, and I know that looks like a big if statement in the end, rather than having a big if statement that says if this is not in, if this is an error, or if this is an error, or this is an error, or this is an error, what I've used to come up with my error message is I've used binary for it. So essentially, if the error occurs, so let's say I change this to be a code that doesn't exist for that particular organization. So this is an IFM specific code. It says errors wrong code. What this does over here is it puts the wrong code into the wrong code category. Let's try and bet one that doesn't just put it in the end. Let's do 1000.0000001. So I'll put that back to that. So this says the amount is invalid. So I don't allow things that are not 2 decimal places. And you can see there that it's put a 1 in the, sorry, let me zoom in. No, I can't zoom in because the things. Hopefully you can see on my screen the 1 there in the third to last section. And what that does is in here somewhere. Where is it? Not in here. Somewhere else. No, it isn't there. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's warnings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different error messages that I want to show someone. And all I've done is say, so for 7 different values of 0 or 1, I've put all those different values down here. And then I've just done a formula to say if the 1 occurs in the first part of it, then put adjustment type is invalid. If it occurs in the second part, then put WGA invalid, and so on. And for the error which I've just given myself now, it's in the third column, so it'll always put amount invalid, and there's no other errors on there. So this one at the end kind of just creates an amount invalid error message. But if I did put in the wrong GL code again, wrong organization rather, then on here I'm getting the 00101 error, which then produces an error message called errors amount invalid and wrong account or wrong org. So I know that this looks like a bigger formula than just doing all the ifs, but actually, if I wanted to create a new one on here, it's far less of a maintenance job for me to understand and see what's going on. I don't know whether I've made this seem good or not, but I found doing your error messages in this way really effective for all the different combinations that I've got here. So I've got 128 different combinations of error messages. I don't want to write an if statement that's got 128 different outcomes. Anything else on here? So that's about it for that. What I do have over to the left is more information about the warnings and errors on here. I can choose to say that this this thing that I've got in here is a purchase ledger invoice or sales ledger invoice or something, purchase order. And what that'll do if I click on the link is it will take me straight through to the finance system, and it would actually drill down to that that invoice for me. Because I put in some nonsense, it's not actually sent me to anything. But if I did have a proper Integra reference there, then that would have sent me to the correct purchase ledger screen. Or if I click on purchase order, then click on there, it's now going to send me to the purchase order inquiry screen. So just a quicker access to being able to see the things from a previous perspective, but maybe if your auditors also have access to your finance system, then they can go straight to the source files. Right. I am essentially out of time. What I will do is I'll just go through to the other Power Automate thing shared with me. So I've got two. So this is before and after I changed the file extension. So this is XLSM ones, which the whole process was being done in a particular different way. This new way was far more efficient. I was able to get the process running a lot faster, and it was using XLSB. So this is the version which is used going forward. If I edit that, then this is essentially telling you that when you have edited something within that that document library, then that triggers this whole process to take place. It posts a message to me, so I actually do get a message whenever anybody sniffs on anything in the document library. I do get a message currently to say that somebody's doing something. I've just not turned it off, and my workflows is just completely muted all the time because of it. But then this creates all of the variables to do with when somebody last saved it, goes through the process of getting all of the data from the file, checking out a new file for it so that nobody can disrupt the data that's happening, and saves it somewhere else as well so that somebody can continue to use the file and I won't have issues where somebody's in the file already. It will get all of the information from the tables in there, convert it to a language which Power Automate can understand, and then start the process of creating the items in the journals list, creating items to say when the last save was. So if you saved it like several times within the last minute, it may run the process more than once. So I only want to run the process the latest time. Like I don't want to, I don't want to take old information from this and have something be out of date. And then here, just updating the journals list with all of the information from that it's found on the journal, and finishing the process off by updating the create the modified by people again and sending the person a message. This is similarly, there's one for journal approvals, and in here it is triggered when the status of my journal list is a particular status, so only when it's on request approval. So it doesn't keep on sending approvals until somebody requests another one. It deactivates all of the old approvals and then squeeze this away. Creates an approval. So there's the approve, reject, and query of this, and there's the information that is sent on to the approvers. It then waits for that approval. Oh, it sends the approval message on to somebody, sends it on. It's just being sent a message to say that the approval has happened to the requester. It posts that approval in their chat, and then this whole flow waits for that approval to happen. Once the approval has happened or a response has happened, it then posts that response to the approvals table and then does a variety of different things depending on the response. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like I did this in a very efficient way, but I didn't know any other way around it. So if it's approved, then it updates the status to be approved. If it's and sends out a different email, and so on. So that's what's happening there. Any questions? I do have 1 minute, but I don't know how many more, whether I can get an extra 10. I'm not sure. Depends on other people. But yeah, if you do have any questions, please let me know now. I will start sharing some of the rest of the slides whilst you do. Let's get that open. So we've gone through everything kind of like step by step in terms of the highlights. I've put these on here as to what like my favorite bits of it were. Loved the version control stuff and all of essentially all the hands-off aspects of the whole process. I did it as much as I possibly could to really be a complete system that I don't need to intervene with. Unfortunately, IT issues have occurred, but yeah, learned a lot from it. And essentially, what is next? Well, I'm gonna get rid of it. So everything you've seen here is going to essentially be obsolete as of the 1st of April when we move finance systems, because we're going to use it in the finance system. The foundations of it, as I mentioned before, Charlotte, like they are still relevant. Like we can still use this process and the learnings from it to develop an approvals process for authorized signatory lists or for things on forms. But yeah, that's where things are at the moment. Apologies for running over, but yeah, please, if there are any further questions, do ask so now. And yeah, this is kind of its intro to all you guys, but its own farewell towards it at Bolton, to say that this existed. No, it's not going to. Okay. I'll reshare again. So I do have loads of links on here to everything that we've talked about. There are links on here with regards to SharePoint limitations. So one of the funny things that I spoke to Norfolk and Suffolk about was like, oh, you're limited to like 2,000 rows or something with Power Automate and SharePoint lists. I've managed to overcome that with indexes, and those SharePoint limitations link talks about that. And if you do have any issues with reaching those limits and not being able to get the data because it's got more than that many rows, rest assured I've got over 10,000 rows in my SharePoint list now, and I've also got more than 10,000 items within my document library. I'm still able to use my Power Automate and stuff with those because of the indexes which I've got in place and the indexes I've got on my views within SharePoint. So it is possible to get around those issues. You just need to know how, and yeah, these links can help support that. There's some information here about the other stuff, and yeah, that's that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Emma, for coming along talking to us today. I think everyone found it. Oh, I think there's one question in the chat. Charlotte.
Yeah. Warnings or special considerations to be made when building processes like this. When you're using new technologies, like the support in which you've got is quite limited, and the support which you may have with many things might be quite limited. Lots and lots of Googling with regards to this to see whether people have had the same issues or not. It wasn't like prevalent whilst I was doing it, but obviously ChatGPT is around now. Potentially that could have helped a lot with regards to answering some of my questions. So yeah, if you are going to, then by all means ask that as well, and any other tools that are AI to help you. There are co-pilot things within Power Automate now that wasn't at the time. So yeah, loads more things are there to help you out now. But it's a big thing to take on, and you do have to give it the time and care that it needs to pull it off. Otherwise, you just waste your time. But hopefully this proves that it's possible and proves that you can go from nothing to something that is really useful. Yeah, if I had more time, I guess more questions or more demos and whatnot. But yeah, if that's everything from everybody, then thank you very much for your time, and yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Emma.